You've seen the ads. A brand new adventure bike looks like it costs 10 grand, but the price tag says 4, maybe less. It's got the adventure styling, the tall windscreen, the knobby tires, the whole package. And you're sitting there thinking, that's less than a used Honda Rebel with 40,000 miles on it. So what's the catch? Is it a hidden gem, or is it going to leave you stranded on the side of a highway 2 states from home? I've been down this road, literally. I've put miles on CFMotos, Roketa, CSCs, and a few brands you've probably never heard of. And I'm going to tell you exactly where the corners are cut, where they're actually decent, and whether you should buy one. Let's start with the obvious question. Why are these bikes so cheap? It's not because the Chinese can't build good engines. They most definitely can. CFMoto has been building engines for KTM for years. Zontes uses the same supply chains as the European brands. The metallurgy is fine. The casting is fine. The engineering is actually pretty good in a lot of places. The savings come from 3 things: labor, overhead, and marketing. Chinese factories pay their workers a fraction of what Japanese or European factories pay. They don't have the same R&D budget overhead because they're copying proven designs instead of inventing new ones. And they spend almost nothing on marketing in the US. No Super Bowl ads, no MotoGP sponsorships, no dealer network with fancy showrooms, or at least not much of a dealer network. The bike itself can be surprisingly solid for the price. But here's where it gets complicated. The first thing you'll notice on a Chinese adventure bike is the suspension. It's almost always the cheapest component. It's soft, it's underdamped, and it's the first thing to wear out. On pavement, it feels floaty. On gravel, it wallows. If you're planning to actually take this thing off-road, not just ride to the trailhead, but actually ride trails, budget for a suspension upgrade. That's another $500 to $1,000 depending on what you need. That's not to say it always happens like this. My new 2023 purchased in 2026 as a new bike for a deeply discounted price, CFMoto Ibex 450 or 45MT for you non-Americans, is a solid bike for a solid price. I have had 0 issues with it so far, but it's still in its break-in period of about 600 miles, 1,000 kilometers. It's got a pretty decent TFT display that is only sometimes hard to read, and that's just when the sun is directly behind me and I'm wearing polarized lenses. It doesn't feel too soft. It doesn't feel too stiff. It's survived the off-road single track and roads that were in worse shape than those same off-road trails. My 650 Adventura hasn't been off-road yet, but it's been on gravel roads and it's been on those same terrible so-called pavement roads that are in worse condition than parts of the Colorado BDR, and it's held up tremendously. My first bike, a Roketa 200cc that was shipped to my door for $1,100, and I had to assemble myself. I ended up giving that to someone who wanted to get into motorcycles. I had put about 4,000 miles on it before I upgraded to a 650, and he ended up putting about 12,000 more on it before he tried doing something that bent the wheels on it and had to buy new wheels before he sold it. It's probably still on the road today, more than 10 years later. Sure, there was maintenance. Tires needed replaced, lights needed changed, sprockets, upgrades, Farkle. It was worth every penny. I crashed it once or twice. He crashed it a bunch of times, but the engine just kept on ticking. It's about quality control. And generally, Chinese manufacturers do not have the same levels of QC as the Japanese brands, but it's still a quality bike for the price. The second thing to worry about is the electronics. Chinese bikes have come a long way with the electronics, but they're still inconsistent. Again, QC levels aren't quite the same. I've seen CFMotos with TFT displays that look better than BMWs that sell for twice to thrice the price. I've also seen CFMotos where the dash started flickering after 6 months. The wiring is usually fine. It's the connectors that are the problem. Cheap connectors corrode, or they vibrate loose. And when your turn signals stop working on a bike that's 3 months old, it's not a catastrophic failure, but it's annoying. If you know electronics, or even how to do basic electrical work, this is just part of the price you pay for buying cheap. I don't mean to deter you from these bikes, but I would like to make you aware of it. Get used to being handy with your bike, but I would recommend that for any bike, not just the Chinese ones. I own BMWs and Kawasaki's that I had to fix myself because the dealer wanted to charge an arm and a leg plus a few $1,000s. The third thing is the dealer network. This is the big one. If you buy a Honda, there's a dealer within 50 miles of almost any major city in the US. If something breaks, you can get parts in a week. With a Chinese bike, you might be waiting a month for a part. You might be doing the repair yourself because the nearest dealer is 3 states away. And if the brand goes under, which has happened, you're stuck with a bike that nobody can fix. CFMoto is definitely upping their game in the United States as far as dealer network goes, but it's still much smaller than Honda or Yamaha or Kawasaki. But let's talk about the actual riding experience because that's what really matters. I spent a weekend on a Roketa 250 Enduro DB49. It's a 250cc single, aka a thumper, less than 40 horsepower, weighs around 400 pounds wet. On paper, that's right in the sweet spot for a beginner ADV or dual sport bike. Enough power for backroad highway cruising, light enough for fire roads through the Nevada deserts, single-track trails and falling over because I made a mistake. Because mistakes are always made when riding for adventure. In my opinion of it, honestly, it was fine. The engine was smooth, though, when I got into the higher vroom-vrooms. I could definitely understand where the Thumper nickname came from for a single-cylinder engine. The brakes were adequate. The ergonomics were comfortable for my height. It didn't feel cheap in the way I expected it to. The plastics were decent. The welds were clean, as far as I could tell. Anyway, I'm not a welder. The fit and finish was roughly the same, a KLR 650 from the same era, or really any era prior to the most modern iterations. But here's what you don't get from a test ride. You don't get the long-term picture. You don't know if that smooth engine is still smooth at 10,000 miles. You don't know if the wiring harness is going to develop gremlins after a year of rain and road salt. You don't know if the dealer is going to be there when you need a warranty claim. But that's what you're not paying for. You're not paying for support. You're not paying for a large dealer network. You're not paying for warranty. I think when I got it, it had a 3-month warranty. That's it. 3 months. And that's the real gamble with Chinese bikes, not whether they're good on day 1. They are. The question is whether they're still good on day 365. But if you're willing to turn a wrench, splice wires, fabricate a new wiring harness, they'll work when you make them work. CFMoto offers a 2-year warranty in the United States. I think for the EU it's a 4-year warranty. The dealership I got mine from offered an extended warranty for up to 5 years, and it honestly was a decent price. But I already had a hard enough time talking my wife into letting me spend the $3,300 I paid for my newest CFMoto, only after showing her the $7,000 MSRP before all the dealer fees. So let's break it down by brand, because they're not all the same. CFMoto is the safest bet. They've been in the US market the longest, they have the best dealer network, and they're partnered with KTM, which gives them access to real engineering. The 450 MT is their ADV offering, and it's genuinely competitive with the Kawasaki KLR and the Suzuki DRZ. It's not as proven as those bikes, but it's close. If you're going to buy a Chinese ADV bike, this is the one to get. Roketa is the wild card. Their build quality is surprisingly good, better than CFMoto in some areas, but especially the price. But their dealer network is thin, and parts availability is hit or miss. If you live near a Roketa dealer and you're willing to wait for parts, it's a solid bike. If you're in the middle of nowhere, I'd pass, unless you're good with tools. CSC is the budget king. The RX-4 is a legitimate ADV bike for under $5,000. But it's a parts bin special. The engine is a copy of a Honda design. The suspension is generic. The electronics are basic. It works, but it feels like a bike that was assembled from a catalog. If you're mechanically inclined and you don't mind doing your own maintenance, it's a great value. If you want to just ride and not think about it, look elsewhere. Bashan/BMS and the no-name brands. I'd avoid these. They're cheap for a reason. The metallurgy is inconsistent. The quality control is non-existent, and if something breaks, you're on your own. I've seen frames crack on these bikes. I've seen engines seize at 2,000 miles. The savings aren't worth the risk. Zongshan, the RX-3, RX-4, and RX-6 are definitely worth looking at. Zongshan has a long history of good reviews on the China Riders Forum. If you can find one in your price range, it might be worth it, but you've got to be willing to turn a wrench if it breaks. Here's my verdict. If you're a new rider on a tight budget and you want a new bike with a warranty, a Chinese ADV bike from CFMoto is a reasonable choice. It's not as reliable as a Japanese bike, but it's half the price. You're trading long-term durability for immediate affordability. That's a trade-off that makes sense for some people. If you're an experienced rider looking for a cheap second bike or a project, a Zontes or CSC could be fun, or really any of the brands such as Life and Zongshan or Kovi, you know what you're getting into. You can handle the maintenance. You're not relying on it as your only transportation. If you're buying your only bike and you need it to start every morning and get you to work, and you don't have a garage full of tools and a backup vehicle, buy a used Japanese bike. A 10-year-old Suzuki V-Strom or Kawasaki KLR 65 Num with 20,000 miles is a better investment than a brand new Chinese bike. It'll be cheaper, more reliable, and easier to find the parts. I know that's not the exciting answer. A new bike is shiny. A used bike has someone else's miles and someone else's scratches, but the smart money in the budget ADV world is still on used Japanese. The Chinese bikes are getting closer every year. They're not there yet, at least not consistently. A quick shout out to the China Riders Forum for all the help they provide to the rider community and idiots like myself when I was first starting out. They're a good group of folks with plenty of knowledge to share. Like and subscribe for more useful information, and comment to let me know how to improve the videos. Have you owned a Chinese ADV bike? What was your experience? Drop it in the comments. Ride safe, ride cheap. I'll see you on the road.